want us to make sure that we get started on the brochure so you know how to set up your template, because once we do that, then you can use this template to begin your personal brochure for whichever town, if you're doing the town of Boone or another town. So I'm going to go ahead and do the tutorial here for stage 1 and at least get us started. What we're doing, and this should not take more than 20 minutes. I will try to kind of go through it quickly, but then you can always watch the video and go back if you miss a step. So this is chapter 5 of the textbook. We're skipping chapter 4. It's the folding travel brochure. You won't need the graphic files this time, but you will for stage 2. So make sure that you go back and download the files called Australia from the Against the Clock website if you haven't done that already with your account and your code. And we're going to begin. It starts on page 312, talks about the page formats, and then we're going to actually begin on page 301. So I'm sorry, 300 is where it starts, and then we're going to begin on page 301. So if you have InDesign open in your textbook, if you want to follow along, you can. So on page 301, you're just going to create a new document like always. I'm going to go to create new. All right, it's taking a while to load here. So what you're going to do is create your own template. In the newsletter project, you started with a template that was already created for you, and then we made some modifications to it. Well, this time we're going to start from scratch and create the template. So I'm going to select print. And then you can title this letterfold because it's a letterfold brochure. And we're doing a custom size this time. It's 4 by 9 inches. So that's the size of the brochure when it's folded. It's portrait orientation. You want to be in inches. And then we're going to select primary text frame, deselect facing pages. Don't worry about the columns. We're just one column. And then the margins, we're going to change to 1/4 inch on all sides. The bleed is going to be 0.125 inches on all sides. And this time we are going to use a slug. So this will be the first time that we use the slug area. And those are printer marks. And our slug, it's going to be 1/2 inch on the top and the bottom. And then left and right will be 0. So we only want the slug area at the top and the bottom. And then you can click create. And it should look like this. So this is what the brochure will look like once it's folded up. It's going to be 4 by 9 size. And the purple marks are the page margin. There's your text frame. The red margin is the bleed margin. And then if I scroll up and down above it, you'll see that blue, it's kind of faint. That blue area on the top and bottom is the slug area. All right, then on to page 302, I'm going to be working in the master page area. So open up your pages panel and click on A master. And I'm going to do a control right click on A master and select master options for A master just to rename this. I'm going to rename it outside so that I know this is going to be the outside spread of the brochure. And I'm going to, before you click OK, I want to type in 3 pages because we want 3 panels on our brochure. So type in 3 and it'll automatically create 3 pages that are 4 by 9 inch size. So we're doing this in the master page area above that bar. Okay, then on the next page, we're going to use the selection tool, the black arrow, to click inside the margin area on the left page of the spread. So then once you click there, you'll select that primary text frame. the blue bounding box. And I'm just going to clone it onto my other two pages because you'll see they don't show up on the other two pages. So to clone it, I'm just holding down the Option key and then use my selection tool to drag it over and then do the same thing. So now that I have that text frame on each page. So I can click on each one of them because I'm going to flow text in there later. Then once you do that, I am going to make one of the panels the fold-in panel. So remember when I showed you those student samples of the brochures, and the fold-in panel, it needs to be slightly smaller to accommodate the fold so it doesn't get all bent up when you fold it. So it has to be a little bit smaller so that you can fold it. So we want to make this left panel the fold-in panel. That is going to be 1/8 of an inch smaller than the other panels. So to do that, we're going to use the page tool, which we haven't used before. So if you look at the toolbar, there is an icon button that looks like a page. So if you click on that, that's the page tool. And then you can select that left page, and you'll know the page is selected because you'll see those weird corners show up around the bounding box. So it's actually not the bounding box. You're actually selecting the page itself. Okay, so you see those corners there? So if you select the left page, then you can use your control panel and make sure that under liquid page rule, you select object based and that objects move with page is checked. Okay, so check those two things. Once you select the page, then you'll see those options up in the control panel. And that will allow us to change the size of this page. So what we're going to do is choose first in the control panel. You'll see where I am at the upper left, that reference grid. Select the right center reference point. This is really important because if you don't do that, you're going to have this gap in between your pages, which is not going to work for the brochure. So make sure you select that right center reference point so that when you make the change, it's still going to be adjacent to the panel next to it. Okay, so once you select that, then we can type in actually a mathematical equation because we know that this panel needs to be 1/8 of an inch shorter, so it needs to be 0.125 inches shorter than 4 inches in width. So I can just type in after 4 minus 0.125 and hit return. And that automatically changes it to 3.875, which is 1/8 of an inch shorter than 4 inches. So if I click on these other two panels with the page tool, they're still 4 inches in width. It's just the left one that is shorter. Did everybody get that? Because this is really important. Because when you set up your own brochures, you can use this same template file. All right, then when you do that, you can save your file so you don't lose your work. And then we're going to use the slug information. So I'm going to zoom in on the top here so that we can see the slug that's within that blue margin. And I'm just going to create a text frame. So I'm going to select my type tool and just create a text frame within that blue slug area above that shortened panel on the left side. And then I can just type in text. So these are printer marks. This will be helpful once you print it out so you know which panel, the orientation of each panel on the brochure. So I'm going to type in outside left panel. So I know that this is the outside left panel and this is the fold-in panel. And then I can just center that in that slug area. Okay, so these are marked so that you know which panel this is. And then I'm going to open up my attributes menu using the window menu at the top. So go to window and then select output and then select attributes. And mine is hidden over here. So once you do that, then I can select this text frame that I just created and select non-printing, so that I know that when it prints out this brochure, it's not going to print out those directions. It's just so that when I'm working on the design layout, I know which panel or which page this is. It's the outside left panel and it's the fold-in panel, but it's not going to print that out. So you can select non-printing attribute here. Okay, then I'm going to do the same thing for my other panels, and I'm actually just going to use this one and clone it. So I'm going to Option, click, and drag to create another text frame over the center panel. Oh, and one thing I forgot to do, let me just delete that here, is I'm going to select this text frame and hit Control right click so that I have these more options, and I'm going to deselect Allow Master Item Overrides so that once I override my page, this will not be overridden. So it'll still be locked, so I can't go back and move it. So I'm going to go ahead and clone this now after I've done that and move it over the center page. Oops, no, I already did that. Okay, and then I'm going to just type in over this. This is now the center panel. It's actually the outside, so I know this is the outside spread, outside center panel. And for the tutorial, this is going to be the mailing area. But for your personal brochures, we're not doing a mailer brochure. We're doing a brochure for a rack shelf. This would be the back page of your brochure. Then I'm going to do the same thing here and clone it and place it over the next panel here. And I'm going to type in outside right panel. And this is the front. So this is your front cover of your brochure. And so you can't see the top here when you just fit your page in view. I'm going to use my hand tool, and then I just can scroll up so I can see those directions up there. And then I want to create some fold marks. So I'm going to zoom back up there to the slug area, and I'm going to switch to my line tool, which looks like the diagonal line. I'm going to place, actually first I'm going to select the default fill-in stroke so it fills it with none and gives it a stroke of 1 point. I'm actually going to change it from 1 point to 0.5 just to make it a little thinner. And then I'm going to start right where you see this line in between these two panels. Now when you print this out, you won't see this line. It'll be invisible. But you can see it right now, so you know where one panel ends and one starts. That's why we want to create some marks here so you know where to fold, because you won't see this line once you print it out. And you don't want to see the line, okay? So I'm just going to put my cursor right on the top of that line and hold down my Shift key to constrain it and then drag up to create a line. So this, like a crop mark, this is my fold mark. So I know after I print it that I can line this up to fold it. That's where I need to fold the brochure. I'm going to change this from a line to a dash. So I'm going to go to Window, Stroke, and then I can change the type of line to a dashed line, and I can change the amount of points that these dashes are way too big here. So I'm going to change it from 12 points to 3 points. So these dashes are 3 points in length here. And then you want to make sure that it's placed exactly at 3.87 on the x-axis here. So you can use your control panel to do that. And then I'm going to clone it. I'm going to select it with my selection tool and hold down the Option key again and clone that dashed line and place it over the top of the next point of fold. And this time it should be at 7.875 on the x-axis. So I'm just going to, you can just type it in with this dashed line selected to make sure you're putting it at the exact right place. All right, so once you've done all of that, then we want to do the same thing at the bottom. I can actually clone those two dashed lines to the bottom here so that I have my fold marks on the bottom of the page also. So I'm going to select these two dashed lines, hold down my Option key and drag down to clone them and place them right above or right below the fold marks, below the brochure page. And then I can select it and again, make sure I can use my control panel to make sure it's placed at 3.875. And then the next one is 7.875. All right. So then once I've got those marks up, I have my slug area. I have my fold marks placed in. I've got the shorten panel on the left page. So I have set up the template for my outside spread of the brochure. Here's my front cover. Here's my back cover and the fold in panel. And we did all of that in the master page area called A outside. So now we can duplicate that to create the inside spread. So with the A outside spread selected in the master page area, I'm going to hold down the control key on the keyboard and right click on the mouse and select duplicate master spread A outside. This time I'm going to rename it. So I'm going to hold down the control key again and select master options for B master and call this inside. So now this is going to be my inside spread. Click OK and then double click on that spread to select it. So we need to make some changes here because the inside of the brochure is going to be reversed. So it's going to be that mirror image. So instead of the shortened panel on the left, we need to move the shortened panel to the right side. We're going to skip place text variables. If you see that in the textbook, we're going to skip from page 307 and go on to page 310 where it says create the inside master pages. So that's where I'm at now. And then I'm actually on page 312. So I'm going to go back to my page tool and select that left page, which is the shortened page. Remember, it's 3.875 inches. And this is a little tricky, so you want to make sure that you watch this carefully. So you select this page, make sure that object base again is selected, objects move with page, and I'm going to select the left page, and then I'm going to click and drag all the way to the right edge of the right panel, and I'm going to align this edge to the edge of the panel on the right and then release my mouse. And once I do this, you'll notice in the control panel that now the width of that panel reads 3.875. So what I've just done is swapped this page with this page. So if you look at the left page is now 4 inches in width and the right page is now 3.875. So that's also a very important step because if you don't set that up correctly, it's not going to fold in correctly. So you want to swap the fold in shortened page for the inside spread. Now I have to go back up and change my slug area because this is now the inside spread, not the outside spread. So this is now the inside left panel. And then this is now the inside center panel. And the right page is now my inside right panel. And this is the fold in panel. You'll notice it also swapped my fold marks. So I need to move this fold mark over to where the fold is going to be. And you can use your control panel again to make sure it should be at 8 inches. So type in 8 on the X axis. And then I'm going to scroll down and do the same thing below and move that fold mark over to where the fold is. Oops. And again, it should be placed at 8 inches. And you can just use your control panel to do that. Once I've set that up, I can apply those master styles to my live page area below the bar. So I'm going to double click on the A outside spread and drag it down below page 1 on my document. And then I can select page 1. I don't need, it just automatically inserts page 1, but I don't need that. So I'm just going to delete that page 1 by hitting the trash can and say, okay, I'm going to delete it. Then double click the B inside spread in your master page area and drag it down below page 1 to 3. And now I can double click on pages 1 to 3. This is my outside spread, and then pages 4 to 6 is my inside spread. So they may look identical right now, but remember they are not identical because your inside spread, remember the left page is shortened for the fold in, and then the outside spread, the right page is shortened for the fold in. So they're actually different sizes. So make sure you set that up correctly. Now you can save the template. So I can just go to File, Save As, and I can save this as letterfold, and you can save this under Format as an InDesign template. And I'm going to save this on my desktop here, and you'll know it's a template. It has the T in the extension, and I can save that. And then you can open that template up again. So if I close this, I can find it on my desktop where I saved it and select the template file. And then I can open it. And I can use this template file to do my design. I'm going to use it for the tutorial, but you can also use the same template file that you use for the tutorial as for your personal town brochure. So that it's important that you set up your template correctly, because then you can use that template to set up your layout for your personal creative brochure. So once you've got that done and out of the way, then you can do a creative layout using this same format. And so we'll begin the layout and flowing in text in stage 2, but I just wanted to make sure that I showed you how to set up the template. So we are then done with stage 1. We'll pick up on stage 2 next class. Make sure that when we meet again next class, that you have a sketch for your brochure. So remember, it can just be a folding dummy. You can just take a letter size sheet, fold it into 3 panels, and then sketch out what's going to be on each panel. Now you know how to set up the inside spread and the outside spread, and then you'll submit your sketch on As You Learn